Sahana bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bharat, you have a question?
Clarification on a general question, if I may. So, the portion which describes the passive aggressive, passive person is described as one who's heavily influenced by his environment. Environment, situation shape his personality, correct?
And mind, yeah.
Yeah. And
Mind.
his own mind. Okay. So if a passive bad person happens to be in a good environment, so does the personality change or the behavior change?
May or may not. You can't override vasanas by an environment. And passive is like really the worst. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There is no such thing as worst. It's the worst case scenario because, firstly, you're bad. Secondly, you don't have an intellect. So, how does anyone reach you? If you're good, you can be reached through your goodness. If you have an intellect, you can be reached through your intellect. But if you're neither good nor have an intellect, then how are you going to be reached at all? I don't know. But of course, nobody is entirely bad. So some goodness may be there, in which case um, you can reach through that. Or nobody is entirely passive. So some intellect may be there and you can reach the person through that. But in environment may or may not. Environment is not such a big deal uh, in terms of making our personality. How does one put it where the statement would be right? When you want to 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 improve yourself and you put yourself in the environment that will help you do that, you get a push, you get a sort of force from behind. You have what is known in the airplanes as a tailwind. You understand the
Positive.
concept of tailwind, right? Because you've got the wind pushing you from behind. So when you are in that environment and you choose to make use of that environment, you have a tailwind. If you are in an environment not conducive to your goal, you have a headwind. However, it is really the plane and the pilot that determine what is going to happen. So environment is not that much of a deal. It supports you or it prevents you, or it either hastens your progress or slows down your progress, but doesn't actually give you progress. So if you just put a negative person in a good environment, most likely because things around him are so good, his negativity won't show, but it will be there. The moment there is something, it will come out. Like, everybody goes to the ashram. Nice people. I mean, everybody's behaving nicely. But when a situation occurs, then you really see the goodness or badness of that person.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So we were doing how renunciation brings about success. Uh, it's a struggle to try and explain this. So you have to go back to your own experiences. Think about a time where you tried to do something with no vested interest and think about how well that situation took place. Every one of us, in some way or the other, would have experienced this. That, there was just some situation and you jumped in and you just did it. You just did whatever needed to be done without thinking, kya hoga, ye, wo, ye. You didn't waste your time with all that. You just, because the situation was such, you had to function fast, you did it, and how well it all came. When the ego is not playing, success is a very, very normal thing for us humans to have. The more we can forget ourselves into some higher, nobler, greater thing, the more we get what the rest of the world calls success. If in your eyes you will continue to be the same person you always were, but the rest of the world will say, oh wow, look at this, look at that. Just forget about yourself and plunge into work. That's all it takes to be successful. Too much thinking, overthinking, oh, what will happen to me? What will happen to me? Will I succeed? Will I fail? Forget about all this. Jump into it. Do it. I mean, do it for the general welfare, for the good of all, for a nobler purpose. And watch how success comes and kisses your feet, as it were. That's what Ramtirtha says. You don't chase success, you get down to what needs to be done. Success will follow you. So that's what he's trying to say. The very, very difficult concepts to sort of get and understand and explain. But if you could just relate it to an experience you yourself have had where you have done that, you will begin to see how beautifully that law works. Has anyone ever experienced it and would like to share with us some small incident? A time where you were successful, you simply weren't thinking about yourself. It doesn't have to be some fantastic success. You won the Nobel Prize, you don't have to do. You just have to think about how everything worked when you forgot about yourself and did what you needed to do. That's all it is. When the mind goes beyond itself, it does amazing stuff. It's the essence of Karma Yoga also. Anyone wants to share an example?
Yeah, madam, one experience I can share. 1980s, that's about 43 years back, in a different country. I was in a different country, one of the African countries. We were in a swimming pool. Probably I had not come to the level that I could stand also. So I was walking around and somebody was at my feet. Realized there was a body there. That lady, or I don't know whether lady or a male, I don't even remember now. I went down, picked up, and brought her to the surface, gave her the resuscitation, and she or he started breathing. So
Oh,
that time I did not think. In fact, I was not a part of Vedanta. I didn't even know Vedanta at that time. Right? I'm talking 43 years back. So quietly did it. That's it. Brought him up, did the resuscitation, started breathing, and everybody was very happy, and I was happy myself. So you just don't think about yourself that something could happen to you. Fortunately, I was a swimmer, so I'm not bothered about that. But I had to get the job done. That's about all. And
mm.
nobody has noticed the man going down. The child man, I don't know. I don't remember. So I think
Yeah,
those would
very
be.
good example. Just do what needs to be done. That's it. And that's success. It's no big deal. And that's what, when you do karma yoga, that's what it's supposed to teach you. Just get the job done.
But
Forget
there's
about
but there's the other side to it, ma'am. Just this Saturday, society building is getting repaired. Fortunately, the background that I have, the people are doing it, the consultants or the people contractors are doing something wrong. So I brought it to the notice of the committee. They came down. Now, when I'm explaining to the contractor, the ego of the committee members, no, no, he's doing the right thing. No, I'm qualified to talk on that. It's not that I was talking through the AI. I write to the technical, bare, hair splitting details on the technical, and knew what I was talking. They also understood, but they were like putting hurdles to it. So I had to tell them, please keep quiet. So now you're doing a good turn, committee. I don't get anything in return. But there are people who are the bottlenecks, or so there is the other side to it also. Everything is not honky dory. You have to get over that. So that
it. Yes, of course. No
not
doubt
that
about
that also happens. The other side.
it. No, it's not that also happens. It is at every moment, if we keep our own ego out of it, we just deal with it as it needs to be dealt. Even when people disagree with you, even when people,
So I
talk
had to
on
overrule
subjects they
them.
know nothing about.
Eventually, I put it across. Now you take the final decision. I'm not taking. I've given you the pros and cons. This is how the contractor understood what I was talking. These people, committee chairman, they would like to no, no, no. They had to said, Baba, I've given you the pros and cons. Now you take your decision. I leave it at that. That's the best you
Yeah,
can do.
you have to just do what you can do moment to moment to moment to moment. This is what we train ourselves to do at any point. People will agree, people will disagree, people will like you, people will not like you. All this is temporary stuff. But those who can moment to moment do whatever needs to be done, such people achieve success. And the best possible under those conditions. If you start thinking, oh, this, oh, that, ye bola, usne wo bola, it just
So once I was yeah,
go ahead.
once coming back to India, a couple approached me. They take care of our parents, so I stayed with them till we boarded, and I was in a plane. And then we were relaxing, and suddenly her husband came calling for me, and she said, "Come, come, my wife is not feeling well." So when I went, I saw she was lying down and she was having oxygen on it, and they didn't even know any language except Marathi. And the nurse, they asked for a help. So there was a nurse, and she was Russian. So I had to converse with them. And when we landed at airport, they just took us out first, three of us. And then we went to the hospital. And then she said, I don't want to stay here because my son is on a H1 and I would not like to get stranded in this Amsterdam. So then I said, you be brave. Tell them that you are okay. And then she behaved. I conversed everything with the doctor, and because she was telling me in Marathi and I was talking to them in English. And then she felt good. They gave her the treatment, and then we again boarded the plane, and we came to India. She literally vomited on me, and I had taken the bag and everything I had done for her, and she was so thankful. And then she called me. I said, "You don't send me anything; just take my message." But then also she sent a watch for me, which I have kept it as a memento. But that was what I had done.
Very nice. See, but you don't have to keep thinking, you just do handle the situation. And the situation comes out as best as it can under the situation, under the circumstances, like whatever. So very nice. So as we keep doing it, just keep doing it, you find that life just gets easier and easier. Of course, you make mistakes. Please, you will sometimes do things you ought not to have done. That's all okay. No problem. But do it, do it, do it, do it. We are going to meet, problems one way or the other. So it's better that we meet a problem trying to achieve something good. And I don't know if you ever recognize that when you do something good, how you get benefited. Like when they got off at Amsterdam, to listen to this thing, she was the first off the plane. Normally we're standing over there and waiting and waiting and waiting and getting so bored and say, oh, when will we get off this plane? But Shilpa was first off the plane because she was the only one there doing some noble work. And that's how it always is. It's incredible how this whole thing works. You need to maybe believe a little bit, try it. If believe in the sense, try it out and see what happens. Don't do anything silly, of course, but just try it out. I mean, when I say don't do anything silly, what I mean is at the airport, somebody gives you a parcel and says, carry it to the other country for me. Please don't do things like that because that is dangerous. But just generally being of as much help as you can be under the circumstances. I mean, to everybody in general. So when you leave the trace of the selfish ego, the self-aggrandizing ego, the self-glorification ego, it's amazing what comes. If you think that, oh, I'm chairman of my organization or I'm chairman of my cooperative society, so my opinion is correct. You won't be chairman very long and you'll be agitated while you're chairman. Incredible laws, incredible laws. Switch off from everything, focus on the action. And that, he says, is renunciation. What a fabulous definition, isn't it? Who will read the next paragraph?
I can read. Vedanta provides you with the knowledge to lead that exalted life. Renunciation is synonymous with the knowledge of self. Knowledge and renunciation are two sides of a coin. The rishis, great sages of the past, retired to the forest to contemplate, discover the fundamental truths of life. Just as scientists isolate themselves in the laboratory to discover the laws governing the world, the truths of life that the sages unearthed constitute the knowledge meant for the people to apply in their day-to-day living, in the same manner as the scientific laws found in the laboratory are applicable to the outside world. Vedanta, therefore, is not designed for resignation or retirement. yet people wrongly believe it to be so, and they have unwisely alienated it from the modern society, especially the youth. Sadly, the youth have been brainwashed to believe that Vedantic knowledge promotes renunciation meant for supernauts who are done with life, or for idle recluses. So, renunciation is synonymous to knowledge. They are both the same thing. And the rishis, to uncover this knowledge, they went into the mountains, secluded themselves so that they can better study it. But this was not meant for mountain dwelling, but for everyday life. And this is what people miss, that this knowledge is meant to be lived.
Correct. This knowledge is meant for living. So when we say knowledge, this knowledge is meant for living, then people argue and say, but all the rishis were in the forest, so they must be for the forest. No, the forest at that time were what are, our labs today. When you have these massive, Google has some massive thing and whatever, Apple has some massive thing, and people go there and they live there and they work there. Yeah, they do everything there, right? They have their gyms there, and they live their life basically there. They eat there, they have their gyms there. Whatever they want to do, they do there. Why? Because it keeps them in that zone of being able to think about of whatever laws or techniques or whatever it is they are finding. So they keep your mind generally there, so that you find more and more things. You know how we studied yesterday that as you do something more and more, discrimination in that area increases. So they're so immersed in it that they just get so good at it. And that's why, we have such a legacy of great thinkers in so many fields in our country, whether it is health or astronomy or even Shringar, every bit of it, they all sat there and they thought about it. But having thought about it, having gone there and thought about it, what are you supposed to do with the knowledge? Supposed to use it for daily life. Imagine if all these AI people, they make better and better AI, and they discover better and better things, and they never give it to us to use. Then it'd be quite silly. They just made a fantastic robo, but we never even heard of it. So what are we going to do? We want to improve our lives. So therefore, we have to take the knowledge that was discovered in these places where people retire in the sense they go to quiet places to do this. But that knowledge is the knowledge of this world. It's a knowledge of how things happen here. And it is a knowledge which has to be practiced here or applied here. Is it clear about the rishis and their just showing that they were in the forests all the time doing tapas? Sure, they did. But for
Could
us,
you please explain this point? Because in the scientific method, if we have a theory, say physicists or even us mathematicians, when we have a theory, we test it out by looking at data. But this Rishi, did they came back to society to test out their hypotheses, or what did they do?
yeah, they did whatever it took.
They did whatever.
They took whatever. Sometimes, like somebody like Einstein will never test his hypothesis. For him, his whole world is that paper and pencil. For somebody like what is his name? Who invented the light bulb? Edison. Somebody like Edison, he did 1,000 experiments. So different people have different ways of doing this. Some people do it by experimentation, some people do it by thinking, but they just want to find the law eventually, one way or the other. So they do what it takes. Many rishis did come out into the world and do stuff which people question, but they did whatever they needed to do to learn. Shilpa, I forgot to mention that Delta people gave me 5,000 points for helping. See? Isn't that amazing? You do something without thinking of your own well-being or things like that, and the world just pours stuff on you. I mean, whether it was convenience for her that day in terms of being able to leave the plane fast and get moving, or whether it was getting 5,000 points from Delta, it just takes, it returns it to you somehow, somewhere. Yes, Bharat, karma gave. The other thing is, sometimes you will be with people who, no matter how much you do for them, they don't think in terms of giving back to you. Please be warned. Now, this Delta was very good and they gave something. But there are people who can take our goodness for granted. This is just a fact of life. Just as at some stage we took other people's goodness for granted. So don't expect anything to come back to you. However, the accounts of life are usually maintained. It's possible that you may be with ungrateful people. Not even ungrateful, some unconscious people. They don't get what you're doing for them. That's fine. The accounts of life will be settled. Yes, Bharat?
So Janki, on this point of the need to isolate for the rishis, but that's the same for everyone, right? To gain knowledge, you have to be in the quietude, correct?
Yes. But you don't need to isolate like the rishis do. May or may not need. Depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to discover a law, then you may need to isolate because you have to put in that much effort. If you're trying to understand the law, then morning study is good. So you will have some degree of isolation. The degree will depend on what it is you're trying to achieve.
Yes, thank you.
Deep Raj, why are the accounts of life usually maintained and not always maintained? Very good, Deep Raj. At least you're listening. We use the term usually maintained because it's important for us to base theories on something which is experienced or experienceable. It is not possible to experience that it is always maintained. Because for it to be always maintained, your time span will have to increase. If you increase the time span, then it becomes obvious. But if you're looking at it in a narrow time span, even if it's one janma, whatever it may be, I've seen Shilpa now, let us say for the last 10 years maybe. So I will see what she's got in this period of 10 years. And I may think to myself, no, it's not maintained. Or it is maintained, whichever one I do think. So that span of time in which we are looking, we can say usually maintained, not always maintained. But if you increase the span to include all janmas also, then yes, always maintained.
Janki ji, good morning, it's Malti. In fact, I should switch my video on. I was just going to say that actually, I have found that when you're saying, I know that one says usually and doesn't say always, because it doesn't have to be from the same person. So we say usually that I helped you, and it's not you. You may be, as you say, unaware or unconscious, ungrateful, and you don't do anything for me, but some total random stranger who I have done nothing for. So it comes around in a circle, not necessarily from the same person. Many times I do good for all kinds of people on the street, and so many people do things for me who don't know me, who will never see me again. So the karma, in a larger sense, that you said, whatever you do comes around, maybe not from the same source, but life still gives you back in a larger sense. I think that you do the good or the bad, you do it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly from that organization or maybe this time Delta didn't give her trips. Maybe at some other point of time, she will get something from the universe, or karma will give her something which she was not expecting. So without expectations, you do it, it does even up, is what I'm saying. So therefore you must, as you're saying, we do what we can without expectations, but the accounts will match up sooner or later.
Yeah, but that's not what I said.
No.
What I said was they will usually match up.
Yes,
So the judge's question was intelligent question, because that means he's actually listening. That, see, as a mathematician, he is clear that when you say usually what you mean, and when you say always what you mean. So his question was on that probable syntax. I don't think he's debating the point or wanting an explanation on the point. All he wanted is, why did you not say always and said usually? That was his question. He doesn't want an explanation on that point. Is that right, Deepraj?
Okay.
Isn't that you just cognize the goodness in the world more because you have become good? Yes, you cognize goodness more when you become good. That's correct. But you're saying this in the context of how karma comes back to you?
No, how she recognizes when random people do good things for her.
Yes, correct. So the better you are, the more you will be appreciative of what people have done for you and therefore want to do back for them. The more self-centered you are, the less you recognize what people have done for you, and therefore the less is your urge or desire to do something back.
And the less you receive.
And the less you receive, and the less you think you have received. Both. It's a very, very interesting thing how two people in exactly the same circumstance, one can be so grateful for it, and one can be so complaining about it. I mean, I don't mean that that person is just consciously complaining. They're feeling miserable and they're feeling terrible. You know, we tend to be a little, what should I say, a little sort of negate the feelings of others, deny their feelings. We say, oh, what is there in that? It's a very small thing. It may be a very small thing to you, but it may not be to somebody else. So we deny or negate feelings a lot. We don't say, we don't appreciate that another person is feeling something that I'm not feeling. Somebody says, I'm feeling hot. So most people around will say, oh, it's not hot. Or someone, but it's not hot to you, it's hot to me. Like, why do you negate what I feel because you feel something else? Common thing is, as most of you know, I don't eat any mirchi. So if anyone gives me food, almost every food, especially in India, almost anything I eat, I find it too spicy to eat. So they tell me it's not spicy. It's not spicy. My tongue is burning. And then people say, oh, you like to make a fuss. Okay, I'm not making a fuss. It is burning. I am experiencing the burning. So we tend to negate how another person feels if we don't feel that same thing. And that is not a very sensible way of conducting ourselves. So when people grumble and complain, if possible, we should attend to the problem. If possible, it's not always possible, but if possible, we should, when you're feeling hot, why not I put on the fan for you or the AC for you, whatever it is. Oh, you're feeling cold, may I bring you a blanket? It's not about what you're feeling, it's about what they're feeling. And India's riding roughshod over other people's wishes and feelings is just a normal way of living life. Just normal. If I think it and you don't think it, then you're obviously wrong. So it's not that they are complaining without cause, that's what they are feeling. it's not like people are consciously saying, oh, I'm going to complain a lot about this. No, they're feeling the discomfort. So, as good human beings, our job is to help them not feel the discomfort. So, got it? They not only receive less, their feeling of receipt is also much. This yesterday, one man was telling me, we started laughing when I told him that. He said, it's his life. He's comparing it to Saap CD. He's a very, very rich man, studied abroad, businesses abroad, very, very rich, well-to-do person. And then he and his friends got together, made an investment of some 40,000 crores. I forget all these figures because they mean nothing to me. Some fantastic figure which I cannot even understand. They got together, they made an investment in something in one of the states in India, and that state not being conducive to this kind of investment, the project failed. And these guys obviously lost a lot of money. He said, so it's his life has been like a SAP CD. You go up to 19, these are his words. Go up to SAP, you go up to 99 and then koi SAP mil jata and then you're back down to 2. And अभी फिर से 20 साल लगेंगे for it to go back to 99. So I said, ठीक है ना, 20 साल में हो जाएगा, क्या problem है? So he started laughing. That this Vedanta's positivity can never be run down. At least you know that in 20 years I'll go back there. So that's a good thing to know. So I'm grateful that in 20 years I will be able to get back to whatever I was. So are you able to be grateful for whatever? Whatever. No one says, oh no, I was playing cricket and my leg broke. So I'm so grateful, at least I have one leg to hop around on. Depends on how you look at it. So sometimes in life, when we feel bad for ourselves, we are incapable of seeing the positive. A positive means we're incapable of seeing what we are currently receiving. Not like we're negating that we don't have this, but we are still cognizing what we are getting. Suppose I say, my head is hurting so much. Then can I not say, oh, thank God my legs are not hurting? Otherwise, I have double pain. My head is also hurting, legs are also hurting. You should hear how many stories I hear every day. One day I should write a book now on so many stories. So this paragraph clear that the rishis retired to find the laws, but the laws they found are the laws which are functioning here. So they are applicable here. I mean, not that they're not functioning there, they're functioning everywhere. They are all universal laws, but they are right here for us to use. Right. Clear? This paragraph clear? Shall we move on? So now, who will read the next paragraph? Kinnari?
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I read?
Yes, please.
Renunciation has nothing to do with place, position, or profession. It flows from knowledge which refines you, places you on vantage ground, puts you right on top, renders you peaceful and blissful, free from anguish and anxiety. Few realize the grandeur and power of renunciation. Through renunciation, you gain everything. Its spirit leads your actions to success, also supports your enjoyment of the world. This paragraph explains how renunciation has nothing to do with your place or uh, position or your knowledge. and explain
Or
or your profession, and it explains how this knowledge gives you so much. It places you on top. It frees you from anxiety, anguish, and makes your life much more blissful and enjoyable. Basically, you gain everything through renunciation.
I think this paragraph requires no explanation because I'm sure all of you have already experienced this. That it is, whether you're a Vedantin or not, it's got nothing to do with whether you attend class, whether it's your attitude. Like Mr. Chandwani was saying, I didn't know anything about Vedanta at that time. So I didn't know about it, but somehow some parts of me were aligned, and whichever parts of me were aligned to the truths, to the facts of law and the laws of life, that part of my life worked well. So this is clear, right, to everybody that it has got nothing to do with anything physical. It has to do with the way you think. And the more that thinking is based on right knowledge, the more of a renunciate we are. How do we know this? We will be successful and we will be happy. How is that? Clear? Only Deepraj tells me it's clear. Everybody else looks like clear, right? I can't even see y'all. We can put on the videos. Why don't y'all put on the videos? Y'all are not dressed for company, that's why. Or y'all are watching TV, watching this at the same time. I don't know what is going on. Chatting with family while class is on. Yeah, Bharat.
So the enjoyment comes from the fact that the negativities are eliminated.
Yeah, in the sense you're not agitated, that's why. You're just living a peaceful, happy life. Yes, desires reduce. This is a normal consequence.
Yes, true. Thank you.
What I understood is that both the desires reduce and the few desires that you have, you have become so efficient that it becomes very easy to fulfill them as well. So it's almost, unless something major comes, you're just happy.
I mean, it has to be really major. If you're a person of renunciation, to make you unhappy would be a bit difficult. I mean, something, I don't even know what major thing will have to happen.
Like
Something.
what happened to Angulimal, we can say.
Okay, but he had not, you can't say that he was, yes, that's true, that level of challenge was extremely high. So that's true, but as you grow higher and higher, it becomes more and more difficult. It gets more and more difficult to agitate you. People will think you're angry, people will think you're agitated because you are sorting them out. But for you, it meant nothing. Okay, who will read the next para?
May I?
Please.
There is a stern law of life concerning attachment. Attach, you lose. Detach, you gain. None seems to be aware of it, much less follows it. It means that if you cling on to any material form, selfishly attached to a person or object, you shall go through suffering and sorrow. Either something terrible happens to that relationship, or you lose the object of your desire. Whereas, when you live a life of mental detachment, in a state of renunciation, you will find objects and beings reaching you. Swami Ramatirtha has proclaimed this truth to the world. The way to gain anything is to lose it. It is an inexorable law of life. Observe it in your surroundings. Learn it from your experience. Realize this truth from personal knowledge. So this paragraph is talking about the way to gain anything is to actually let it go, let it be the way it is, rather than trying to we do the opposite. We are rushing after it. We are trying all possible strategies to get something. But the truth is, and the law is that when you let it go mentally, while doing everything that needs to be done from your end, things will come back to you like almost automatically.
Good. Like a common thing in this world, right? You're at a party, you want to talk to somebody. There's nothing much, you want to talk to this person. But can you go and do it? Can't. I mean, it's very, very, it's a daily experiences we have. We'll overthink something so much that we will do nothing. But in our minds, it's going on and on and on and on and on and on. In the meanwhile, somebody else has already spoken and already had whatever fun or whatever they decided to do, had a good time, exchanged some pleasantries, whatever. And then we'll sit back and say, see, these people, they are rich. That is why this happens. Or they are so beautiful. That is why it happened. Nobody bothers about us. All these are nonsense logic we have. You couldn't do what you needed to do, and therefore, it didn't happen. I hope you're getting it, because the more you begin to see the truth of it in life as it exists now, that the way to gain anything is to lose it. It's a simple thing. You're dealing with your son or your daughter, and you keep chasing the son or the daughter. Ye karo, wo karo, mere saath bolo, ye, wo, ye. You're chasing that person. Person will run away. Don't do that. You are a victim of your own desire. Just let it be. When the person is ready to speak, the person will speak. You cannot fast forward things for other people. Even when your husband comes home from work or your wife comes home from work, क्या हुआ, उस meeting में क्या हुआ और क्या बोले, और just relax. Be available for that person. The person will come and tell you, or you can just ask, क्या हुआ? But no, we will chase because we are trying to hold on. So we don't know what degree of action to perform because you're clinging so much. How much should you do? And how much should you not do? Only intellect will tell you. Who else will tell? Rahul Roy. In the world that is moving towards consumerism, how can one move towards renunciation? Rahul, consumerism and renunciation are not opposed to each other. Consumerism, if you mean in the sense of a mental longing or craving for it, if you mean it in that sense, then it is against renunciation. Renunciation is not like, oh, let's not buy an iPhone, let's live a very simple life. Have you just joined? Because the whole point of renunciation is the attitude you bring to your life. It's not about the quantum or the type of possessions you have. Renunciation means that you have given up that clinging, petty selfishness. That's the true meaning of renunciation. True meaning means that's the sensible meaning. If you take any other meaning, it will not be able to hold up to sense. True or false, everyone will tell you, no, that is not the true meaning. This is the true meaning. Forget true or false. This is the sensible meaning. If you do not understand it like that, if you understand it as giving up objects and beings, then it makes no sense. How is that even supposed to make any sense? Suppose you say, no, it means giving up objects and beings. So I'll say, okay, what do you think you should give up? Say, I think I should not buy a Mercedes, let's say. Rahul, do you think having a Mercedes is a state of renunciation? Rahul, really, I don't bite. You can talk to me. Is having a Mercedes a state of renunciation? No, not renunciation. Okay, so let us say I have a Mercedes and Rahul tells me this is not a state of renunciation. So then I just give away my Mercedes. So now I have a Maruti 800. So Rahul, would you say by my having a Maruti 800, I am in a state of renunciation?
No.
No? Okay, so then I give up. Okay, so I give up my Maruti 800. I get a cycle for myself. So would you accept that person as a renounced person?
No.
I don't keep typing here. Bolo, no, bolo, yes, bolo.
No. I
Said
said
no.
no.
I said no.
Still you will be attached. Still you will be attached to
It goes step by
cycle.
step. Let us see at what stage. We are not talking about attachment. We are saying let us take the theory and discuss the theory that giving up objects, can that become renunciation? So okay, so we say no. If you have a Mercedes, you definitely not renounced. Maruti 800, no, not renounced. Okay, chalo, if you have a cycle, and a simple life, you have a cycle, then will we accept you as a person of renunciation? See, we have to examine the theory. Just examine it. Don't bring in other theories. We are examining the theory that objects will determine whether you're a renounced person or not. So let's go with the theory. Let's examine it. So now I have a cycle. Would you accept me as a person of renunciation, Rahul? Are you thinking what? Let us say Rahul says no. If you have, don't go here, Rahul, just stay with the thought. Forget the tradition. Let us analyze it. You said they have renounced all material life. We're trying to identify what is that material life they have renounced. Do they possess a cycle? Are they allowed to possess a cycle? Let us say, for argument's sake, then no, you're not allowed to possess a cycle. If you're a person of renunciation, you cannot have a cycle. Suppose we say that. Say, okay, fine. So I sell myself. Now I have to go wherever I'm going. So can I take the bus? If I take the bus, am I a person of renunciation?
No.
No. If I take the bus also, I'm not allowed to take the bus. So that means, okay, I have stopped taking the bus. Now, what can I do? Now, if I have to go anywhere, I have to go walking. So if I go wherever I want to go walking, am I a person of renunciation?
No.
No. So then you say, no, even that I'm not accepting. All right. So then I never go out of my house anywhere. I just stay in my house. Am I now a person of renunciation?
No.
Then I'll say, why do you even have a house? Oh, so I have to give up my house. Okay, then I stay on the road. Am I now a person of renunciation?
No.
Where are we going to draw the line? So you see, if you go, at what level will we decide that, okay, now this person is a person of renunciation? Can I not keep on reducing? Will a person of renunciation eat non-veg food? No, he will not eat non-veg. Acha chalo will eat vegetarian food. No, not all vegetarian food. Acha chalo, he only eats Jain food. Is he now a person of renunciation? No, what is this? No, what adrak lasun, no kanda, no nothing. All of that stuff out. So is he now a person of renunciation? So some people will say no. Because, whichever plant you're going to eat from, aren't you hurting that plant? If you eat a gobi also, you are hurting the plant. If you pull out a watermelon also, you are hurting the plant. If you pull out an apple also, you hurt the plant. You pull that apple, how would you like your finger removed like that? So you hurt the plant. Okay, so what should I do? I can only eat fruits, but those which have fallen to the ground. So I have not hurt the plant. So now I have to wander all day in the forest to find the fruit which has fallen on the ground so that I can eat it. Now am I a person of renunciation? No. But you shouldn't eat too much of those fruits also. Baba, kya karu main? You can never determine renunciation by objects and beings. Renunciation is your capacity to think beyond yourself. That is renunciation. And what is it that you have renounced? Rahul, go step by step. Go step by step. The same problem that we have just spoken of. Where will you draw the line between a necessity and a luxury? Who is allowed to draw that line? Who says this is the Madhyam Marg or the middle path? Who says it? Who will determine it? These are not
yourself.
workable theories, huh? You said something, I didn't hear you.
Then I said, you only can decide. No other person can decide.
So I am Mukesh Ambani. I run a massive empire. Okay, my empire is all over the world. To be able to run that empire, I have to go from place to place. I cannot keep buying commercial airline tickets, so I buy myself a plane. Am I a person of renunciation? If Mukesh Ambani buys himself a plane because he needs it to run his empire, this is an act of renunciation. A person who buys a plane, the same plane that Mukesh Ambani bought, to show off, he's not a person of renunciation. So, renunciation or not renunciation has to do with why you have done something, not what you have done. The moment you go away from this understanding of renunciation, you will get into all sorts of intellectual conundrums, which you please work out. Don't go to tradition suddenly. Work it out for yourself. So, okay, what is Madhyam Marg? Who will determine Madhyam Marg? Am I the yardstick for everybody's Madhyam Marg? Does everyone get to determine on their own? If everyone gets to determine on their own, then they can determine anything. If somebody in particular has to determine, then how is that determination supposed to take place? Think it through. Now you're in a philosophy classroom. Your job as a philosopher is to think things through. Like what Nadeep Raj is being trained to do, right? Make a difference between usual and always. Doing generalizations in religion has become a national hobby in India. Kuch bhi bolo. You don't have to justify anything. If anybody asks you anything, you tell a story. This is not how philosophy works. If you're studying Vedanta, your terms are defined, you mean what you say. If you say always, you mean always. If you say usually, you mean usually. If you mean that I'm drawing a line between basic necessities and luxuries, and I need to ask the question, who is drawing that line? Who gets the right to do this? I have to know, is there a line? Which is that line? At what point? How much food am I allowed to eat before you think I'm an indulgent person? Can I eat 2 chapatis and then I'm fine? Can I eat 4 and then I'm fine? How many chapatis do I have to eat before you call me an indulgent person? Can we determine this? It's a very simple thing, right? Imagine a sumo wrestler. Whatever number you came up with in your head, how many chapatis you're allowed to eat, would that number be correct for the sumo wrestler? Then how would you define it? Now you have to include him also in your definition. How would you define? How would it include a person who was, let's say, intolerant of gluten, was gluten intolerant? How would you? Please think, because that is your role as a Vedanta student and as a human being. Okay, great. Who will read the next paragraph? Is this paragraph clear? Attach, you lose means when you get mentally attached to something, you become incapable of dealing with it correctly, of doing the actions properly. Detach, you lose means now you've placed your desire in your intellect, and your intellect is governing it and leading your actions, and so you deal with it properly, and therefore you achieve it. You become successful or whatever you do. And because your intellect has already developed, you're able to see a much wider arena where this functions.
I have a question. It says at the end, observe it in your surroundings, learn from experience and personal knowledge. So this means that it can only be cognized through experience, or is there another way to understand this law?
No, I mean, like all knowledge, you must have an experience. You must be able to back it up with experience. There's no point having a theory, but your theory is not seen anywhere in practice. So you must be able to verify it.
But the theory is that the attach you lose, detach you gain, and what's the logic behind it?
What we just did, that when you're mentally attached, mentally clinging, your actions towards that thing become incorrect. You're no longer able to do what needs to be done. You do too much or you do too little. And you're not generally aware of the object or not. You're so caught up in your own head. So you're so caught up in your own head that you don't know that this is the right time for me to say this to X person or not the right time to say it. That same thing, if I'd said 10 minutes later, that person would have accepted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's it for today.
Sankiti, just
Yeah.
one point.
Mm-hmm.
So, since we are attached to about a million things, all the more actions suffer, right? Because the intellect has completely taken a backseat.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Ravesh, you had something?
Yes, ma'am. Without facing the challenges, are we able to apply the knowledge? Means only gaining the knowledge, and some situation comes from that situation, will be able to understand how to apply that knowledge, or until and unless will not means get some challenges. That knowledge means I'm having.
The only way to gain knowledge is by engaging the intellect. As long as you engage the intellect, you will gain knowledge. Now, in some conditions, you need the experience to engage the intellect. Under those conditions, you will need to take the experience. But
If someone, yes,
what gives knowledge is the engagement of the intellect. It's like, unless that gear is on, how will the car move? It can't move. You don't put the car in gear only, so hilega kaise? So that the gears of your intellect have to be engaged. Now, in under different conditions, the intellect will tell you what you need to do to learn that particular bit of knowledge.
means challenges and uncomfortable zone is also the way of learning or applying the knowledge.
One of them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Hari Om.
Thank you, Janki.
Hariom Janki ji.
Hariom, madam. Hariom.